Hi everyone. I'm sorry I'm not able to make class today. In addition to my hurt ankle, I have a terrible cold. So if you're hearing me sound stuffy, I am. So what I wanted to do in preparation for our phone call is to have an opportunity to um, just review lesson planning with you a little bit, and I'm going to send you a link to all of this. Or you should be able to see everything in here as I'm moving forward. So remember, lesson planning is really important. If you think about Thanksgiving dinner, you plan ahead of what you're going to serve, how many things you might cook, and whether it's Thanksgiving dinner or any kind of holiday dinner you might have, and how to time things so that everything gets done at the same time. Lesson planning is a little bit like that. You know all the things that you need to do, you have all your materials ready, and then you think backwards from when this lesson is done, what you want to accomplish during that amount of time. You know, we know planning is really important, that it's really a vital component of the teaching and learning process. Lesson planning gives you a framework, it helps you be organized, it gives a sense of direction, it helps you to be more confident because you know what you're going to teach because you planned it. Helps you look back so that in your future planning you can remember exactly what you did. And it helps you identify, as you're working through, how to cater to the needs of the different types of students that you have. You know, we've talked about teachers making several thousand decisions every day, that you use your professional knowledge about content as well as your knowledge of the students and their abilities so that you can pace things effectively. You imagine the lesson before it happens so that you can come up with all of those worst case scenarios, like what might go wrong and how to prepare for that. And it allows you to really align your assessment with your objectives so that assessments, your students can be more successful with the assessments. It also allows you to demonstrate your ability to effectively plan a lesson based upon those four basic questions. Who am I teaching? What am I teaching? How will I teach it? And how will I know if the students understand? We've talked about those on and on throughout the course of this term so far, and we've practiced doing that several times in smaller lessons and through our discussions in class. So we've also talked about the idea that this is a cycle, so that you're always going on, and that you do the who are your students, help you plan the what, and then you skip to the how will I know, so that you align your objectives and your assessments, and then you determine how you're going to teach it. And we talked in the past about Friday being spelling test day, and that we in the United States read out words to students and they spell them, but on the test they're asked to identify the correct one out of a list of 4. So that doesn't align with what we teach and how we will know that they have learned it. So there are some other things that you need to think about. What kind of space is in your room and how you'll use it. If you have 25 kids in a small classroom, you can't do the same kinds of activities as if you had, a much larger space. How do you accommodate or modify for students in your classrooms that might have disabilities? How do you pace? How do you know how fast to go? How do you make transitions, getting students into group or passing out papers? What questions do you want to ask? You need to plan those ahead of time so that you can remember to ask higher order thinking questions. As you're planning parts of the lesson, you may think about if you've taught this content to them last week or a month ago, how you might reinforce what you know they've already learned. What about guided and independent practice? How many questions do you need to ask them? How many before you know that they know it? How do you build flexibility to cope with emerging needs? You know, you think everybody knows a particular thing, and then you ask a question and you find out that no one knows, and so you have to go back and reteach that. Identify specific resources and support materials ahead of time, and what kind of technology you'll use for the course or for that particular lesson. Okay, so we're done with that. So I'm going to move now to the assignment that you have for your midpoint assessment. So I've modified a lesson plan that I've used in the past related to direct instruction. And when you read the materials for direct instruction, we talked a little bit about it in class. You know, one of the things that we talked about was that the fact that, you know, direct instruction is that teacher-centered lesson, so that the teacher is the one that is doing the majority of the talking, probably, at least for the introduction of the new materials part. Then you would provide guided practice opportunity for students to practice a little bit. Then they would do independent practice where they do more problems on their own. And then there'd be some kind of an assessment or closing. This template that I have asks questions to help guide your thinking throughout this. So when you write, develop your opening or your introduction, these are the questions to ask yourself in your head. You don't have to answer each one of those. So what you would do would be you could delete that and then type into that box the information that you would want to share about your opening. What you're going to say, how you're going to do it. Are you going to show a picture? Are they going to see a chemical reaction? Are they going to listen to or see pictures of a vacation spot if you're teaching them vacation vocabulary? And then the same thing goes with this. When you're introducing new materials, what are the key points? How will you ensure that students actively take in the information? How will you vary your approach? You don't have to literally answer each one of these, but you would think about them, and as you're planning how you're introducing new content or new material to the students, you would put down the different steps that we've talked about in the past. So this is this example of the direct instruction template. And direct instruction, the template for how you plan a lesson, isn't that different for direct instruction than inquiry learning, except in one little spot here. So I'm going to go to that one next, I think. Bear with me just a second. Here's the inquiry template. So the inquiry lesson is very similar to this, but instead of guided practice where you may be doing a problem on a board, you may do a demonstration. This is where the inquiry method happens. You might show a video clip and let them watch something and take notes. You might have them do something constructivist so that they're determining their own understanding and building their own knowledge of something. So you'd still do a little bit of guided practice or something together so that they know what the directions are and where they're going to move forward to. But then the independent practice would be maybe a lab, a problem-based learning activity, or something else, and then there'd still be some kind of assessment and closing at the end of the lesson. So when you're doing your midpoint assessment, you're going to make a lesson plan that's teacher-centered, direct instruction, and a lesson plan that is more student-centered and inquiry-based, so that students are more actively engaged in that process with creating their own understanding and learning things and discovering things on their own. let me go back to this folder. So when you look at the rubric for the mid-term project, the criteria is that you demonstrate a thorough understanding and appropriateness of effective instructional strategies, that it's clear and logical, that it has the appropriate components for the different types of, this is the direct lesson plan, and that you use correct APA formatting and you submit it on time. So that's the activity for the first part of it. Part 2, same basic criteria. Instructional plan contains appropriate components. It's this time, however, the components are inquiry or discovery based. So, this is how I will be scoring that particular part. And then the third part of the midterm project is the presentation. So the presentation isn't you teaching either of those lessons. You'll just turn those lessons into me. But what you will do is you will review and share with the class, here's the topic of my lesson, here's the direct instruction aspect, here's the inquiry aspect of it, here's how I'm going to assess what I'm doing, so that you'll talk about both lesson plans in a presentation. Now, I hope that helps you a little bit with what we're talking about, the midpoint assessment, what the midpoint assessment is. And so once you review this, I'd like you to also consider, if you're confused about anything, go back into the previous weeks of content that we have, and there's all kinds of great readings and presentations and PowerPoints that are in the class related to direct instruction and to constructivist learning. So go back and review that. And then at some point tomorrow, at some point today, I guess, because you're listening to this on Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to each one of you at either 9:30, 10, or 10:30 in relationship to this activity. So what I want to do right now, just very quickly, is to just put up my phone number. So you can give me a call at your appropriate time tomorrow, and my phone number is 703-569-3733. So I look forward to talking with you tomorrow. Sorry it can't be in person, but we'll talk on the phone, and if we need to jump online and do some sort of document sharing so we can go over these documents again, we will. I'm going to send you this presentation and then the attachments of all the files that I just went over during it. So I hope that you have a great time watching this video and that it's clear what I was trying to talk about, and I will speak with you soon. Thank you.